Hello everyone and welcome to Unit 8, our final unit of MBA 6103, Managing Innovation. This week we'll discuss the processes and procedures for continuous improvement and implementing effective change strategies within the organization. The focus this week will be on how do we move an organization from a type 1 firm, which is the type of firm that knows or does not know what or how to change, does not know, perhaps doesn't even know, it doesn't even aware that there's a need for change. How do we move an organization from being that type 1 firm to the type 4 firm, which is the kind of organization that is adaptable, able to change and adapt quickly, and constantly innovating. If we think about the discussion last week in Unit 7, we ended with a conversation about managing change. And so we'll very briefly discuss some of the strategies for that as those strategies tie into innovation in a way that allow us to facilitate new products, new services, and becoming an innovative organization. So if we look at the types of firms, if we were to classify organizations according to their awareness or willingness, ability to change, we basically look at them on kind of two dimensions. How aware is the firm of the need to change, and how aware is the firm of how to change, the methodology behind changing. Often, we run into firms pretty much all along the scale here. You might have a type 1 firm, again, down in the lower quadrant, a firm that is type 1 firm down here that doesn't know, that is not even aware of a need to change, nor is the organization aware of how to change. So you might have an organization here that in terms of innovation and change might not be that tuned into what's taking place out there in the industry, isn't aware that competitors are closing in or perhaps passing by the organization. The firm might not even notice or recognize that they're losing market share, losing ground. So they might not understand the need to change the way that they have, the way they do business, or certain processes and procedures that they have in place. And in addition to that, kind of magnifying the problem would be the fact that they don't know how to change. So then we kind of move up along the scale here to a type 2 firm that might be perhaps somewhat aware of the need. And you might work for an organization like this. You might work for an organization that is aware that they need to change. They might know that we're not performing as well as we did in the last few years. We're losing customers. We're not as busy as we once were. And so they might be aware of a need to change the way they do things, but they don't necessarily know how to change, and they don't know where they're going to get the resources, the funds, the personnel to change. And this becomes incredibly frustrating for organizations, because in the back of everyone's mind, they might be aware that there's a problem. They might be aware that we've got to do things differently, but without the right leadership, without the right guidance, without the right ability to change, or change agent, so to speak, they might not know how. And that becomes frustrating. And so you might have, you obviously experience, high levels of turnover, low employee morale, just the the inability to really kind of gain the traction and the momentum to be innovative and seek out those change, those innovation opportunities, those opportunities to change the way that the firm operates. And then we continue to move up the scale to a type 3 firm, whom again is still, this type of firm, this type of organization, again, is still aware that there's a need for change. They've got to do things differently. And perhaps they have some talent and some ability to make a little bit of traction and kind of headway into change and absorbing new technologies and processes, but they could do better. They could be much more efficient and effective in those change opportunities and those opportunities for innovation if they had some more streamlined processes. And finally, you have the type 4 firm, which we kind of consider those firms the real innovators, the adaptable firms, the firms that are able to respond quickly to market stresses, respond quickly to changes in technology, and really able to create and absorb value within those innovation opportunities. And so this is obviously where we all want to be. I mean, we want our firms to be those type 4 firms, but how do we get from here to there? And again, we're talking about change, so that will be a focus of what we discuss this week. So before we get too far into some of the strategies for implementing change, we want to kind of recap some of the essential points that we've discussed in the class on innovation and how to be innovative, because these two things go hand in hand. And as we discussed previously, you really can't be an innovative organization without having a pretty significant level of change. There's always going to be change. If you're a true innovative organization, there's always going to be change. Now, there's a difference between change for the sake of change and change that is constructive in implementing, innovative strategies. So, a few points here. We know that, we're working and we're competing in a field of uncertainty out there in the marketplace, because of technology and because of interconnectedness, globalization. All of these factors come together. We know that we're out there competing in a realm of uncertainty. So many things can happen. Things can change overnight. New products, new services can come to market and all of a sudden radically disrupt the way we do business. And so we are operating in a industry or field or competitive sector, competitive market of uncertainty. We know that. And that uncertainty drives this need for adaptability, adaptation, organizational learning. We have got to learn from not only the mistakes that we made, but we've got to learn from our successes. We've got to learn from our competitors. We've got to learn from our customers. We've got to learn from our supply chain partners. We've got to constantly be learning to do things better. And the result is what we consider, the innovation imperative. It's imperative that we innovate. It's imperative that we are constantly seeking out new ways, better ways, cheaper ways, faster ways, more effective, more efficient ways to operate. We're constantly seeking out, new, better products, new, better services, new, better ways of doing things, new, better ways of serving our customers. And if we're not constantly innovating and trying to find better ways of doing things, then it's just a matter of time before one of our competitors does, and obviously puts us out of business. And we often find in business, in competition, that we all talk about innovation. We all talk about, the innovation process, and we talk about, we're an innovative firm, we're cutting edge, we're top of the line. But rather than truly focusing on the innovation process. We often generalize it. We often think, oh yeah, we'll have an incentive, an employee incentive for new ideas, or we'll give people some time to work on some of their own projects at work, or rather than having a formal innovation process of moving new ideas and organizational learning, moving that from theory and moving that from, again, just an idea to a tangible reality, we often don't have a formal process for that. And so the firms that are the true, what we think of as the true innovators, the truly innovative firms, are more successful at developing and implementing, executing a formal innovation plan. If we think about the true innovators, again, companies like Apple, Amazon, Google, those firms, a lot of them obviously technology firms, they devote a significant amount of resources, time, labor, money, significant amount of resources to innovation, new ideas, new products, new services, in terms of R&D, in terms of again, just skunk works projects, in labs. So they really focus on formal innovation plans, and then once there's a new idea or product that has the possibility of becoming something great or something new, they have a formal plan to get it to market. And a great example of that is what Google has done with their Project Glass here recently. I'm sure right now you've all seen either read an article or seen a video about Google's Project Glass and how it came about kind of as a skunkworks project, one of their innovative technologies that they were working on kind of in secret, and then once it had the potential to really be a true market leader, market product, innovative product. All of the steps that were taken to promote, advertise, put it out there. It's out there being beta tested right now with some folks, and to really try to get it to market, there's a formal plan for that. So the successful firms, the firms that are successful at innovation, are those that really formalize the innovation process. And after a while, the innovative firms, you develop this innovation culture. You start developing these routine processes. It becomes natural. It becomes kind of ingrained within the organization itself to be innovative, to foster new ideas, to be creative. It becomes part of the company's culture. So our routine processes, the things that we do on a day-to-day basis in terms of the operational parameters of the organization, they either may or may not be a part of our core competencies. They're either going to be something that makes us do what we do really well. In the case of Google, innovation, change, new ideas, better ways of doing things is really part of their culture, and it's been built into the organization in terms of how they operate, how they manage, how they recruit, whom they hire. It all becomes part of Google's core competency. Now, whether or not the routine process is helpful or harmful to our core competencies remains to be seen with every organization. There are some organizations that do things a certain way and have always done things, and it really hurts their ability to compete. So these routines that we get into as an organizations, they may or may not be replicable. If we try to say we want to be like Google, and we want an organization to be creative and innovative and come up with new ideas and products and services all the time and have a formal process to do so, that may or may not be easily replicable. So really trying to figure out what those routines are and focus on those effective routines is really the whole point of innovation management. When we say innovation management, that's really at the core of what we're talking about. Finding and exploiting those effective routines. Those routines for, locating opportunities, taking advantage of those opportunities, developing new products and services, taking them to market, and continuing to change for the better. Really adopting those routines that make our firm stronger in terms of the core competencies within the organization. A few other points here before we get to discussing change. A few more points on innovation. When we talk about innovation and innovation management, we've got to remember that successful innovation is strategy based. You cannot look at innovation in a vacuum and simply think to yourself, well, we're going to be innovative, we're going to do something different, and just throw it out there and try. It has to be tied to a particular strategy. So innovation is a strategic initiative. Change management is a strategic initiative. So, a lot of times when we start talking about strategic planning and developing, executive level strategies and everything else, we throw the word innovation in there, and we just think, well, that means we got that base covered. We've taken care of innovation because we put the word in there, and that's not really accurate. We've got to make sure that we tie innovation to particular strategies. If we want to be competitive in this market, or we want to create a new market, or we want to compete in a different way, we often think of, well, we've got to be innovative to do that. Well, we have to innovate, and we have to rely on innovation and change to do that. But they've got to be tied to very specific innovation and change strategies. What are we going to do? Seek out and search out those opportunities. Select the innovation the initiative that we're going to pursue. How are we going to do it? We implement, and how do we capture value from it in the long term? If we think back to the innovation process model, that's exactly what we're talking about. Search out the opportunities, select the initiative, implement, and capture that value. But again, the innovation itself and the process itself has got to be tied to a broad level strategy for the organization. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to be? Do we want to be a market leader in the software market? Do we want to be a market leader in customer service? Do we want to, how do we get there? And so then we start seeking out those opportunities. So we've got to tie innovation to strategy. You cannot have an effective strategy without innovation. You can't have effective and successful innovation without it being tied to strategy. Those two go hand in hand. Successful innovation really does depend upon our internal and external linkages. Think about the value chain. There's a reason that we discuss, supply chain management, customer relationship management, on both sides of the value chain. And if we think of our firm kind of in the middle, and on one side we have suppliers and our relationships with all of our vendors and all of the firms that we use and have a relationship with to bring inputs into our organization. We're always going to have some level of inputs, whether it's labor, whether it's raw materials, whether it's we're contracted with some type of outsourcing firm to help build our products or develop certain pieces of our products, certain components. We always have that supply side relationship with some of our supply side vendors on that side of the value chain, that external supply side vendor. Same is true of our customers. So innovation has got to have those strong external linkages outside the organization. Make sure we're tied to that we've really strengthened those linkages, because that's really what helps us learn, or is it we can, within the organization, we can learn from our suppliers, we can learn from our customers. So we've got to have those strong external linkages, internal as well. Within the organization itself, we have got to have those connections, those linkages within the organization, so that all departments and all levels of the organization are learning from one another in the right way. We're actually managing that knowledge and information to create value, and be innovative. Successful innovation, obviously, it requires the right mechanisms within our firm that enable us to facilitate change. We've got to have the mechanisms, we've got to have the pieces in place to enable change to be innovative. Again, the innovation, just like strategy, innovation and change go hand in hand, because you will undoubtedly, when you're innovative, you are going to change something. You're going to change a process, you're going to change a product or a service. Hopefully you can disrupt particular components in the market and create new market space, but something is going to change, and we've got to have the mechanics in place to facilitate that change. In doing so, obviously, innovation, I mean, you've got to have a supporting organizational context. We've mentioned earlier on that innovation requires making a business case. You've got to make the case for innovation, make the case for change. You've got to have a context that really necessitates that change and innovation. So if you aren't successful at pointing out the why, why are we doing this, the why factor, why do we need to innovate, why do we need to change, what's the context of the innovation, what's the context of the change, then you won't be successful in your efforts to innovate. So the last few slides here deal specifically with change. As we mentioned in Unit 7, so many of our change initiatives fail. They aren't successful. And so we know that there's always going to be resistance to change. So if there's resistance to change, there's going to be resistance to innovation. So how do we overcome those? We've mentioned that a lot of the resistance, a lot of the barriers to change really do come from perceptions, personal issues with individuals affected by or involved in the change. So we really need to address that human side, the personal side, the human relation side of change very systematically. Seek out and discover what those issues, those human issues affecting the change or the innovation. Find out what those are, and we address those in a systematic way, which obviously, helps we've got to start at the top, because if we don't have buy-in and if we don't have support at the top of the organization that really support the change initiative or the innovation process, then it's not going to filter down into the rest of the organization that needs to change as well. Involving every layer. Don't leave out particular groups or a certain level of management or whatever. And then finally make that formal case. It's very similar to what we see in innovation. We've got to make a formal case for change. Why is this needed? Why is this necessary? How is this going to help us accomplish our organizational goals? We've got to be willing to support that. We've got to be willing to stand behind that case for change and kind of see it through to the end. And by seeing it through the end, that creates ownership. We've got to create ownership of this change initiative. If there's no accountability, there's no ownership. If there's not somebody that is directly responsible for the success or failure of this venture, then there is no ownership, and it will inevitably fail. Because everyone is, when there's a good idea or there's a concept out there that can help or make a big contribution to the organization, we often think, oh, okay, yeah, and I'll support it all, but we don't want to do anything, and we definitely don't want to take ownership of it because we know that it's risky. Any type of change initiative that has the opportunity to fail, there's a certain level of risk with it. And if the people that are involved truly do take ownership of it, that risk that's associated with it, that might mean termination, losing your job. That might mean that your career at that particular organization is not going to go anywhere further. You'll never get promoted because you become known as the person that took on this project and it failed. There is a certain level of risk, but we've got to create ownership. We've got to when we're implementing strategies for change, we've got to find the champion of that particular change initiative or that innovation project, because if there's no ownership, then everyone will want to take credit for it if it succeeds, and no one will want to be accountable if it fails. So if there's no ownership of it, it's going to run into some problems. Communicate the message. What are we trying to accomplish? What's the big vision? What's the big picture here? And how do we get from point A to point B? In communicating the message, we've got to understand the cultural landscape and address the culture explicitly. We know that every organization has an embedded, entrenched, kind of ingrained culture of either that culture might be of complacency, where we don't really do a whole lot, nothing's really changed or a lot. We don't want to rock the boat too much, or that might be a culture of selfish politics where everybody's fighting for power and trying to undercut everyone else in the organization. I mean, who knows? There's all kinds of political scenarios that we see within the culture of an organization. So we've got to assess that cultural landscape and then address that culture very explicitly, right out front. This is the culture, this is what we're going to change. And finally, we've got to be prepared for the unexpected. There's always going to be something that kind of blindsides us or comes out of, just shows up unexpectedly when we're trying to change something within an organization. And we've got to be prepared for that. So in order to successfully implement change, a few strategies here, 5 strategies. Big picture strategies. When we're developing this plan for innovation and change, we put some strategies down and talk about how we're going to do these things. A combination of all of these things to be successful at implementing change. Obviously, expand involvement and influence. The more individuals within the organization that are directly involved with the change initiative in terms of support and I'm involved, I'm a part of it, and influence, and those people being key players in the organization involved, so that influence is there within the change initiative, the more likely we are to be successful. when we align the leadership, when we select the leadership for the change initiative and align that with our goals, that is, again, key, because we're looking for that champion. We're looking for that individual or individuals, those individuals that really will take ownership and really will be the champion for this particular initiative, that will help us explain that business case, make the business case for that this change initiative, and express the need. So, and then finally, obviously, envision the future. You'll notice that these 5 strategies are the exact same that we would do when we're trying to implement an innovation strategy. Again, innovation and change really do go hand in hand. They are kind of 2 sides of the same coin, because you can't really have one without the other. If you're just trying to change something, more than likely that change initiative is going to be some type of new innovation for the company. Otherwise, you're just changing for the sake of change. If you're attempting to be or trying to be innovative and more competitive, then more than likely you're going to change something. So otherwise, you're just saying I'm innovative, and it's just something that's copy and pasted into your mission or vision statement. If we really are being serious about innovation, you're going to have change that comes with it, and vice versa. So you'll notice these 5 strategies here. I mean, they work for both innovation and change. They really are 2 sides of the same coin, and they go hand in hand. And so these strategies are really meant for both. When we're implementing innovative processes or an innovation plan, these are the things we're going to do. When we're trying to get a change initiative successfully implemented, then these are the things that we're going to do. So they go together, and that's why you'll see them. These strategies work for both. Last thing I want to leave you with from this class is there's a fantastic trade publication. It's a paperback book, 150, maybe 200 pages, something like that. It's a pretty light read, titled "Entrepreneuring in Action: A Handbook for Business Innovation." You can get it on Amazon. You can get it pretty much anywhere, but it's not an expensive paperback. I think probably $10, $15, $20, something like that. You can probably even download the ebook version to your Kindle or iPad. But it's a really great book when talking about how to be innovative. And we talk about the entrepreneur, the person who has that entrepreneurial spirit, who wants to go out there and really do something, but do it within the confines of their own organization. Come up with new ideas, products, and services within their own company, and get the support to pursue those within the organization. And that book, these 10 commandments really do come from that book. So if you ever are looking for a light read, a really good read, it's a great book to read, and it really summarizes the kind of the mindset, the mentality of the innovator. First thing, obviously, as an innovator, what we really focus on doing is we really ask for forgiveness, not permission. I mean, we really seek out to do things in a new way. If we know something can be improved and done better, we go out there and try to do it. And if we make a mistake, fine, we make a mistake and ask for forgiveness. But if we, ahead of time, try to get permission to do it, more than likely we're going to be told no. You'll find that entrepreneurs and the innovators, they are the people that are willing to do any job needed to make the project work, make the project succeed. No job too big or too small. it's kind of like the old saying, there's no such thing as a, sorry job, just sorry people not willing to do them. So that may sound a little harsh, but that really is kind of the mentality of the entrepreneur and the innovator. They really are willing to do any job because it's necessary, it's required of being innovative. The entrepreneurs, the innovators, those are the folks that are willing to come. They come to work every day willing to be fired, and that is the mentality. They view these obstacles not as the end all, but simply something to get around, a burden, a wall to get over or through or around. And so you come to work every day with that mentality. They go to work willing to be fired, and that's what drives innovation. Otherwise, they're too scared to take risks. If you go to work fearful of being fired every day, you're going to be too scared to take the risks and accept the challenges that are required to be an innovator and an entrepreneur. Just a moment ago, I talked about ownership, and if you're an innovator, an entrepreneur, you're willing to take ownership of those projects and make them your own and be accountable for them. So you've got to come to work every day willing to be fired as an entrepreneur. Innovators, entrepreneurs, they recruit a strong team. Some of the great leaders, the great entrepreneurs, they always surround themselves with people that are incredibly good at what they do. They surround themselves with the best and the brightest. So they're not afraid of individuals or team members that are stronger or better than them at certain things. They do surround themselves with the best. They ask for advice before resources. Seek out advice from the folks that you will be asking for resources. Seek out their opinion. It shows them that you're willing to actually research these ideas a little bit, find out what they think before you go ask them for resources. Forget about the pride of authorship. So often initiatives get kind of bogged down by people wanting to attach their name to something that is successful and erase their name from those initiatives that aren't successful. And it becomes, again, the selfish politics gets in the way. It doesn't matter to the entrepreneur and the innovator who came up with the idea. It doesn't matter who made it better. It doesn't matter who wrote it, designed it. All these things. What matters is that it's the product or the service, the innovation itself. What matters is if it really is better, if it really is an improvement, let's get it done and get it out there. The selfish politics need to be put to the side. If you are bending the rules and observing the ask for forgiveness, not permission rule, when you are bending the rules, respect the waterline. This is a great analogy about the waterline. Again, if you're in a boat in the water, think of the a rowboat in a lake, and you've got your coworkers or whatever with you, and the water line on the outside of the boat is where the water comes up to on the outside edge of the rowboat. And if you're doing anything above the water line, if you've got to drill holes above the water line, well, that makes sense. If it makes sense to do it, do it. However, if you're wanting to drill some holes below the water line and it could potentially sink the entire ship, it makes sense to talk to everybody first and kind of communicate your intentions. If the innovation or project that you're working on has the potential to sink the entire ship, but because it was below the waterline, so to speak, then it makes sense to talk to some folks first. Honor your sponsors. And the folks that have sponsored you and helped you implement these changes and have supported and been an ally on your quest to get these things approved and implemented, you need to make sure that you honor those folks. You've probably heard this before. Under promise and over deliver. And finally, stay true to the goals, but be realistic. Don't go out and tell everybody that you're going to save the world and triple revenues and profits of the organization without any realistic data to back that up. So if we were to summarize what this class and kind of what innovation is all about, this is pretty much what we end up with. We need a formal process, but ultimately all innovations need a champion. They need an innovator, the entrepreneur, if it's outside of the organization, to really drive the innovation and the change. So I hope you've enjoyed the class. Congratulations for making it through it, and I hope you found that the content, the material is relevant and helpful in your career, your current career or future intended career goals. So once again, thanks for being part of the course, and I hope you enjoyed it.